So this whole presentation is basically just about utilizing the things that have helped me to build the businesses that I've helped build, and also consult a number of other artists in helping to build a successful career. As Kevin mentioned, these days, the old paradigms of, you going through art school and then approaching galleries and with slides and stuff like that, those have all kind of broken down. We now live in a place where you technically, and I'm saying technically, don't have to even necessarily participate in a gallery world. Okay? And what I'm going to teach you today is kind of the tips and tricks and the hints, and this is all stuff, this isn't like marketing theory where these are just ideas I have, or statistics or stuff like that. This is stuff that I know works. And the only reason I know this stuff works is because I myself have grown websites. I've helped a number of other artists grow websites. And once you have a ton of Facebook fans and Twitter fans and social media people to work with, you start really understanding what works and what doesn't. It's simply, life experience. Life experience teaches better than, a book does any day. So I'm going to kind of start out saying, you can do anything you want with your art career. You can absolutely have any type of art career you want. If you want to be a fine art painter, if you want to be a sculptor, or a abstract expressionist, or even a performance artist, you can do pretty much anything you want these days. The internet allows you to have a direct line of communication to you and your collector's base. All right, so I'm basically going to inform you on how to better tell people you exist out in the art world. You're all extremely talented people. You've obviously been on this trajectory your entire life to kind of get here. Now you're in art school. And so this whole presentation today is all about telling people you exist. And this is probably one of the hardest things for artists to do, because honestly, most artists, I know because I myself paint and draw and have since I was a little kid, are kind of reclusive a little bit. It's how we found ourselves in our room late at night, away from the rest of the family, especially away from the rest of the family. And we started working on our stuff in our own set. And we eventually became more and more interested, and maybe went to high school and got more involved with art there. And now you find yourself at the Academy of Art. And how do we take that from here to there? You basically have to learn that once you produce a body of work, and once you start to produce quality work, how do you present that to the world? How do you start to build a collector's base? How do you start to become successful as an artist? Okay, so my background, we're going to kind of get into my background a little bit, so you can kind of see where I've picked up some of my expertise. I went to Loyola Marymount University and for film production, television and film production. I also am only like a couple of classes away from a degree in the fine arts as well. It's something I never kind of actually finished out, but I still myself paint and draw and enjoy all that other stuff. When I was at Loyola Marymount, I found an internship at Paramount Studios and quickly wanted to prove to the people at Paramount that I wasn't just an intern, that I could be, delivering coffee and washing cars, and you can get stuck in that real easy. I really, really wanted to prove that I was more than just, some kid who wanted to work in Hollywood. So while I was there, I quickly, started doing research, and I just worked really, really hard to prove myself, to show them, that I was a talented guy. I kind of got it. And within like 3 months, I had moved from being an intern to doing research for Angelina Jolie projects, Mel Gibson, and other major motion pictures. My research then brought me to a point where I could start writing treatments for movies, and one of my treatments actually got picked up by the studio, and they said, "Hey kid, how would you like to have a job working in creative development at Paramount?" And I said yes. So at a quick early age, I really kind of got to be in an industry where it took me to a place where I really understood the way media works on a broader base. Because when you work in a place like Paramount, you really get to see the fine details of how kind of exposure and fame and media is created on a broad, broad level. After I was at Paramount for a while, I then got totally burnt out because I was working like crazy, crazy hours. This was my dream job, and I kind of found myself in a place where it's just, I didn't know what to do with my life, honestly. It was like, here was the job I always wanted, and now I'm just completely unsatisfied. And so I ended up moving from there into doing a number of other production companies, helping people start up their own production companies, because I understood how Hollywood worked. I saw it as kind of just a chess match. And then I started to see the people I was setting up companies for, they all were making money in the internet. And these guys with tons and tons and tons of money, and they weren't necessarily like the brightest bulbs, you know, in the drawer, but I helped them. They had made all this money on the internet. So it kind of got me thinking, well, maybe the internet's where it's all at, because I honestly want to do creative projects, but I saw the pathway to those creative projects is through money, and so the money I saw was coming from the internet, and the more I got to know about the internet, I was like, I think I need to be playing in the world of the internet. So about 8 years ago, my other half and I, we moved up to San Francisco area. We started getting involved in the .com industry. And when I get involved with any companies and stuff, I basically go in for reconnaissance. I see how they're doing things. I started just absorbing everything I could. And after a while, I started really knowing a lot about social media, viral marketing, stuff like that. A lot of that came also from my Hollywood background, a lot of things I knew from there. And so once I had started working in there, I found myself in the opportunity to start being able to consult a lot of companies on social media, because I kind of got it. And I was in a place where with a lot of companies, I was helping them out. And then in 2008, I got involved with Shepard Fairey in the Manifest Hope campaign. And from that point forward, I started to get really, really involved into the world of art and what the world of art had to offer. And I started to see there was something that I personally saw was missing. There was no one really kind of highlighting the artist. In all art, I personally believe that your art is one thing and you are another. And I always kind of put this analogy out there. If Jackson Pollock wasn't as big of an alcoholic, would he still be as big of an artist? Would he still have this cultural, you know, like, would Pablo Picasso have kind of his whole persona be out there as much if he wasn't so flamboyant and exaggerated and, you know, so forth and so on? So I wanted with Warholian I wanted it to really be a thing that highlighted the artist. And so from there, I started to do it. From my Hollywood background, I also knew that presenting the artist in a way that was just very cohesive and clean and, you know, basically nice pictures, good stories, and offering them good press, that we'd be able to advance fast. And Warholian has just continued to grow and grow and grow. Now we have a user base of over, I think it's 250 to 300,000 people worldwide on our networks. And third to a fourth of our traffic comes, depends on the day, comes from Europe. And so yeah, we have that. And then I also participate in a company called Patron of the Arts, which I'm the director at, and which we do fine art prints for artists as well. All right, so that's my completely boring background. Basically, so say like I kind of know what I'm talking about just a little bit, but again, this is all just stuff I've learned myself, and I'm going to just relate a lot of these tips and tricks to you. I wanted to talk about this direct communication base you have with your collectors. The main reason it's important to play in the world of social media. How many of you out there have an artist Facebook page right now? Okay. All of you should have an artist Facebook page, even if you're in school. Right now you live in a time where you can start building your collector's base right as we speak. And the thing is, before, the galleries used to have all the power over what was, you know, they used to kind of own the collectors. Now you have access to everybody all over the world at any time, and with that you can basically, you know, create your own collector's base. And that's why I said the galleries are not necessarily technically the only way anymore. Now you have this whole other way of basically approaching people from an online basis. All right? Now, here I am telling you all about my life, what I do, and all this other stuff. But how in the hell do I make money? How do I personally make? I have this site, right? I have this crazy, cool site. It's very neat. It's very respected. But how do I make money? A lot of my money personally comes from having built something I'm very proud of. I currently treat Warholian as an arts documentation project, because a lot of my, I'm not paid by galleries to come and cover shows. I'm not paid by artists to, come to their studios and highlight them. But what I do is I've focused on something which I think is important and something that's creative that's happening at this moment in time. And I've really done my best to present that to the rest of the world. Now, with that, I've helped to establish myself as kind of someone who's curating press to the rest of the art community. So I do things like, so with that, I get hired for social media things. I do photo gigs. What I'm saying is there's more than one avenue in which I make my money. This also goes for you guys as artists. There's going to be multiple. I want you to think of the art world as something where you're not just selling one painting. I want you to kind of get in the mindset of the multiple avenues of ways you can make money with your art, whether that be through prints or commissions to do murals, speaking engagements. If you start to become an expert like Kevin is, maybe even a teacher, there's a lot of different ways you can start to make money through just kind of establishing your brand. And I know a lot of artists hate that word, but it's basically your persona, what you stand for. What do you stand for as an artist overall? Because you're more than just your painting. You're all creative people, and you have a lot more to yourself than just your paintings. And you can put all of that stuff out there in a way that attracts a number of different people and can make you income in a number of different ways. All right, so now on to the nitty-gritty. So we're going to discuss the social networks and kind of the importance of all of them. Facebook is numero uno. It is the one that everybody is on. And a lot of you, especially if you're younger, you probably have this feeling that Facebook's, well, that's the problem. Everybody is on it. My grandmother's on it. Everybody's on it. I'd much rather be on Tumblr, where there's cool stuff and porn and all sorts of stuff. But the thing is, everybody is on Facebook. It's kind of become our 411 Rolodex for life. It's kind of where everybody is. So to have a Facebook page for yourself as an artist is just unbelievably important. It helps kind of establish you as someone within a community where people can easily come and like your page. Now, when I talk about a Facebook page, I'm not talking about your personal profile. I'm talking about a separate page that represents you as an artist. Do any of you some of you understand that? Okay, great. A lot of times people will start up a personal page and they go, oh, well, I have a Facebook page. And I go, no, you don't have a Facebook page. You have a personal page, because someone's not going to come to you and think of yourself, an artist you respect. Are you going to go and you find them on Facebook, you've searched them out, you've done all your detailed searching, and are you going to personally friend request them a lot of times? Or no, because it feels weird, right? It feels just strange personally friend requesting someone you don't know. When you have an artist page, when someone can just like you, it becomes an easy access point for you to capture that person. Now the stats are, when you capture someone through email or a fan on any of the social networks, that goes for Twitter, Tumblr, Google+, Instagram, anything, the price that a lot of companies pay for fans, the average price they pay for someone like that is about $3. So whenever you see your Facebook fan count go up, that's a $3 fan. That's something that Coca-Cola is willing to pay $3 for. Because, and let me tell you why, they know that the statistics are within 3 to 5 years, you have a 50% chance of selling somebody your product, whether that be your art, an art print. I'm speaking specifically about art, but with Coca-Cola, we're selling more Coke, So that's kind of Facebook in a nutshell. Everybody's on it. you want to have a Facebook page. Instagram, this is a big, big, big one, and you guys are all visual. You're artists, you're super visual people. Instagram's the first social network that I've seen that artists really, really use incredibly well. They're using it as a, the way I see Instagram, so it's, you know, pictures of your life, basically. It's, the way I see Instagram is it's basically a life photo journal that you're creating on yourself, right? So as an artist, what I tell a lot of artists, one Brett, I mentioned, I was the first one who got Brett on Instagram. I told Brett, think of it as part of your process. Think of it as taking your phone, and while you're working on your work, you take a snapshot, maybe of yourself in mid-process, explain what you're doing a little bit. You're all teachers, and you can always, we're going to talk a little bit about the types of content you want to put up a little bit later, but you really want to always have in mind that you're kind of informing buyers and collectors and just people who are into your work about what you do. You know, you can put up a picture, but just tell them just a little bit. And then hashtags. Do any of you, how many people know what a hashtag is in here? Okay, so generally a lot of people know it. For those of you who don't, hashtags are kind of like a online filing cabinet. Whenever you hashtag something, meaning it's this, you know, like Michael Cuff. On Instagram, that hashtag, it's basically a file folder was just created. So anytime anybody hashtags this with my name, it's, or whatever it be, your name, or, you know, painting, or abstract expressionism, or oil paint, or you can, don't go crazy with the hashtags. That's what a lot of people do. They'll put 400 hashtags. You don't necessarily want to do that. That's kind of like trying to trick the system a little bit. Like, the more hashtags I put down, like if I put 30 hashtags, that's going to be more people. Technically, yes, but it just pisses the rest of us off. And it kind of degrades your brand identity a little bit. It's like you're trying too hard, and you don't need to try too hard. You'll get more people just by, you know, always keeping yourself looking professional and clean, and put a few hashtags down, and that's it. So Instagram overall, though, I do tell people that, you know, especially artists, you want to use it as part of your process. You want to use it as something that you use in your studio to kind of show your work. I also tell them, too, to link it, because you can, link it to your Facebook page, your artist Facebook page. So that way, if you're having trouble kind of creating content based around your, you know, if you're having trouble putting up content on Facebook, figuring out what you're going to do every day, Instagram seems to be the one thing that I've seen artists really use well, where they don't seem to have too much of a problem, you know, taking pictures of themselves working throughout the day, and that being posted up on their Instagram, and then it will feed directly into your Facebook profile as well. It takes out a lot of work for you. So for myself, on my own personal page, I have a personal Michael Cuff page. A lot of my Instagram pics, they just go directly there, and I don't have to worry about putting up a photo every day, you know, or stuff like that. Tumblr is, let's see, what did I write for Tumblr yesterday? I wrote picture, porn, and culture. There's no restrictions to Tumblr. Tumblr is the fastest growing social network right now. And if you're young, if you're basically around the demographic of 16 to 25, you're probably using Tumblr more than anything. And Tumblr is going to just continue to grow and grow and grow faster, because they're basically unrestricted, uninhibited. Now, how do you use Tumblr? Well, Tumblr has all these different blog functionalities. It's basically, when you first come into Tumblr and you sign up for a Tumblr account, there's a bazillion things you can do, but you see it as just kind of like another blogging platform, like Blogger used to be, or something like that. But what Tumblr has evolved into is basically just pictures upon pictures upon pictures upon pictures upon pictures. And it's a great place for, you know, reference as an artist, first off. But it's another way for you to, again, highlight your process. Maybe you can have Instagram feed into there as well. But you really just want to share your work on these pages. The best way to use Tumblr is through pictures. Don't do a whole lot of writing. Don't do the things that tend to get the response are pictures, because people on the truth of the matter is, overall, as much as I'm going to tell you about all this stuff today, it's all about pictures, 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 because people really don't read a whole lot anymore. They look at pictures. And you guys understand that you're artists too. And so then you come to some place like myself, well, Mike, why do you do these huge photo essays and you do, you have these, you get a writer and they do a beautiful story. Well, what about that? Why do you invest all your time in that? Because even though a lot of our stuff, I can continue to build a network off just pictures, this is what adds validity to me by doing something that's a little more in depth, a little bit more fleshed out, basically, you get what I mean, right? Okay. Twitter, basically when I talk to people about Twitter, I say it's the people who tend to be on Twitter are the headline readers. How many of you are avid Twitter users in here? Exactly. That's kind of where Twitter is these days. The types of people I tend to find on Twitter are people who are just very into the headline type of mentality. It's not to say that there's no one using Twitter or any of these other social networks. It's just different user bases altogether. So when I talk about these social networks, it's not saying one is better than the other, or you should just use this one or this one and this one. Optimally, you kind of want to use them all the ones I'm mentioning here. But you want to, there are certain ones that have a little bit more precedence over the others. I would say the top is Facebook. Facebook. I would go Instagram next. Let's see what else. Tumblr. Twitter. And Google Plus is still finding itself in the world. So Google Plus, I'll now move on to Google Plus. I've actually been consulting Google on how to actually better build out Google Plus, because there was a great analogy. People said it's like a Hollywood club where you see a bazillion people standing out front right before Google Plus opened. And then when you get in the club, there was no one in there. And Google Plus is just still finding itself. It's something I don't like to disregard. I myself have 8,000 people on it following me, but I don't tend to see the interaction that I get from the rest of the social networks. And just that I mentioned interaction there, I want to touch on that real quick. The reason social networks are really important is because it gives you a way to interact with people who are interested in your work. And it allows you that free-flowing communication, which we didn't technically have before in the formal gallery setting. You didn't tend to have a direct line of communication from your collectors into your own personal art space, and now you do with these social networks. It's all about interactions. And on Facebook, the reason why there is a hierarchy here is because I basically base this on interactions. It's how much interactions do I have through people, and interactions at the end of the day add up to basically dollars, spread of your own brand. And if you're selling prints and stuff like that, or you're selling your work, or you're telling people about your shows, or you're doing anything where you're making money off your art, those interactions are where you get the most bang for your buck. So Facebook, you tell people that you have a show coming up at Bold Hype Gallery in New York this weekend, you're going to generally tend to get more people from Facebook than you would on the rest of these networks, just due to the fact that the way Facebook is built, the way you can link things in there and it can take you to web pages. On Instagram, I could tell somebody about a show, but there's no link in there, right? There's no hot link, so they can't immediately be taken to the page. They're on to the next picture. They're like squirrel, dolphin. Oh, that's cool. They're not even on the page. They've already moved on. So now I'm going to talk to you about how to use these social networks, all right? How to use, especially Facebook, how to build kind of like a artist page. I'm gonna use Charmaine Olivia. Nathaniel, can I have you pop up Charmaine's page? Okay. So just as far as like building a basic website for yourself as an artist, there's a few things you wanna have. Well, first off is good pictures. This is a huge, huge, giant point. If I can tell all of you about this as you're leaving the Academy of Art or you're here for a while, start getting in the process of having your work photographed properly. Because once you sell it, it's gone. You don't really ever get it back, right? And the way people see your work is online these days. When you hear about an artist, what's the first thing you do? You Google them, right? So you Google them right away. So proper photography of your art is such a huge note that it's something that I see done poorly so often in our art community. It's sad because here you paint these beautiful paintings and then to not have any nice photo record of them for your future use, it just really does yourself a disservice. So first thing you want to do is properly photograph your work. Don at Allmac, who has photographed, I think, 90% of the people in our community. Don at Allmac Camera here just off Union Square. He'll shoot paintings. I believe he's at about $10 a painting right now. As cheap as I know to do it. They're not super, 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 super high res, but they do the job, and most people have used them in their books. And I mean, he's in hundreds of books. So I would really suggest using Don as a base and really start doing that. Okay, so properly photographing your work, giant first step. Then, so you kind of have a, how do I create kind of a website? I tell people to build a website off a WordPress platform. Warholian is built off a WordPress platform. I have a number of other sites that are projects that I don't tell people about, but they're running right now. And I always build things on a WordPress platform, simply because the way it's built is it integrates with the internet. Things can spread virally easier. The bots that Google has built, you hear about these bots, these crawlers that crawl through the internet and stuff, the indexing. WordPress is built in a way that makes it really easy for these bots to crawl through. And so that's why I tell everybody to really, try to build a web page off of a WordPress platform. You're really doing yourself a big service in the long run, just because it is so friendly towards the internet at this point. There's nothing else, there's a number of other, if you know a lot about how to build websites and stuff, this conversation's not necessarily for you, but if you're just kind of a layman, WordPress is definitely the baseline for building websites. So here's Charmaine's site. Charmaine currently, I mean, she has a huge following. Charmaine's only 25 years old. She's got over 130,000 people following her on Instagram, 40,000 on Facebook. She now makes enough money. We do all the prints with Charmaine, Patron of the Arts. I told you about that print company. We do all the prints with her. She now makes enough money right now to basically not sell any of her originals. And this girl right here is using this whole new paradigm of social media and the internet and art to her advantage. She doesn't necessarily have to go through the gallery circles and stuff like that. She's already making a base income from using all the social networks and putting herself out there on the internet properly. So just to talk about the social networks real quick, the thing about when you build an artist page, these hot links right here are exceptionally important to telling people you're there. Everybody, when someone comes to your web page, they say you have 15 seconds to capture them. You know how it is when you're online. Think about when you go to a website. Your brain's moving so fast. Just look at yourself when you're on the internet. You're click, 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 and you have about 15 seconds to capture somebody. So if someone's come to your website to even look at your work, they're already kind of interested. If they have you know, a Facebook, you know, this Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, whatever they're personally interested in, if they see that there, they generally will click on that to follow. And if you can capture them through that, or Nathaniel, can I have you scroll down a bit there? So, or a email opt-in, newsletter opt-in, which the best one I know of right now that's the easiest, the platform, third-party platform to integrate into your website is MailChimp. You probably have heard about that, but that's the one I find is most user-friendly. And it's actually free up to, I think, 2,000 people. So, and MailChimp's just been amazing. But you basically had this 15 seconds to capture them through, you know, hopefully clicking one of those things and liking or following you on one of the various social networks, or through their email address. Now, the thing is, really, when you build these websites, every time you capture somebody like that, it's basically adding somebody to your collector space. It's giving you the opportunity to make money off of people that are interested in your work. This is the same thing as, you know, being involved with a gallery and getting in touch with their collector space. Now you're building your own collector space. It's not to say people are going to buy your stuff right away, but they are interested enough to like you or give you their email address. Now think about it yourselves. How often do you just like a page willy-nilly or give someone your email address? Not that often, right? I mean, because you know you're just expecting spam, you know. And so when people do, you know, like you on Facebook or follow you on Twitter or Instagram, or, you know, give you their email address especially, it means they're seriously kind of interested in you. They want to know more from you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about brand identity, and it's good we have Charmaine up, because Charmaine, Nathaniel, can I have you scroll up a little bit more? So Charmaine's really created a major brand identity for herself. You as an artist can always create a brand identity for yourself. Like when you talk about, when on your social networks, the types of information you want to share is basically stuff about your life, stuff about more than just being the artist. It's what kind of makes people interested in you. You know, like I said, there's 50% of you is your art and 50% of it is you. The more you put yourselves out there, the more you're going to get back. In the beginning, you have a lot of control over your career about what you put out there. So never feel like you can't. A lot of people have this uncertainty, especially artists, because I've talked to so many artists about how to, you know, do all this stuff, and they're like, well, Mike, I had this conversation with Brett early on. Like, well, I just, you know, I paint, and I just like Charmaine, she's beautiful, and I just can't be in my studio with my underwear on. You know, it's just going to be a different thing. I just don't know what to do. And I said, well, you don't have to necessarily do what she does, which she does do that too, but you can always find aspects of your personality that you can share that don't have to be super personal, but maybe it's a book you read or stuff like that. Different aspects about that. If you want it to just be your art, then just share aspects of your art. Running to Blick, these are the types of colors I'm buying. You know, stuff like that. You can share anything and everything out there about your personal life. We live in a time when reality television is just like, you know, most of what's out there. And the reason reality television works is because the human being is far more interesting than anything you can script. It just is. There's way better stories. And so with that in mind, you as an artist, you know, if you just are throwing up your work and then you hide behind your computer and then you just stay in your studio and you always just put up your work, you kind of are, again, kind of doing yourself a disservice, especially in this new paradigm we live in. People want to know about you. They want to know what you look like. They want to know, you know, the types of art supplies you buy, the types of seminars you attended, the schools you went to. They want to know a little bit about you. It's what fleshes your art out. It's what fleshes you out as a person. It's what fleshes your brand identity out. So Charmaine, she's really kind of created a lifestyle brand for her. The types of girls that follow her really are people just like Charmaine. And this is what's absolutely fascinating to me these days about the internet is it's this thing of you're not going out there trying to just capture anybody. You can, the types of art you do, that you personally do, whatever that is, the way the internet works is it attracts people like yourself who like that type of work. It's fascinating. So when Charmaine had her show, she had an opening in February here at White Walls Gallery, a shooting gallery actually. And all the girls that came in tended to be from the ages about 19 to 25. They were all kind of, I'm trying to figure out the right words, very cute and put together, like they all shop at Anthropologie, and because they all shop at Anthropologie, and but all the people that follow, a lot of her major collectors base are people just like Charmaine. Same thing with Brett. A lot of the people that buy Brett's work are kind of into this urban style of, obviously they're into the type of work, but they're all, it's just fascinating the way the internet works. People actually, the collectors you start to get these days actually tend to be a little bit like you. That's why you don't have to worry so much about just getting anybody out there. You don't want to get anybody out there. By just putting yourself out there, you will naturally attract the people that are like you and like your work. So that kind of takes the pressure off a little bit. You don't have to worry so much about, getting this collector and that, especially right now, early on in your career. You're going to naturally just attract the people that are into your work, who are people who are really honestly into your work through the natural process of just putting yourself out there. Okay? Let's see. All right, the gallery world. We're going to talk about the gallery world here. Okay, galleries are just people that own buildings. All right? The owners themselves tend to be people who are artists at one time and kind of got burnt out with the whole art game, and then they're going to open up a gallery. Or they're people who really do love art, too. There's that side of it as well. There's people who really do like art. And, you really want to understand that they are just, people who own a brick and mortar space. They're not like your only path to success. You have the internet these days. You don't need them necessarily. But what do galleries offer? So Mike, you're telling us like, well, you don't need the galleries at all. We can do this all. Why do we even participate in the galleries? It's the same reason I pointed to my website and said, why do I write these big articles? They're not shared nearly as much as like one picture I'll post. It's because it adds validity. It adds, for people that are cultured for the bigger game, that it's participating in a gallery setting offers a space for your work to be seen professionally. It offers you a place to build up your CV. And it also offers you a way to, in the long scheme of things, potentially get into the museum world. Because I'm going to kind of show you what I have found is the fine art world trajectory. You basically start out in school, which is where a lot of you are at right now. And then you start to get some notice. So you're in school right now, and then you start to really paint. You start to hustle a little bit. You start to get some notice. Then people go, hey, you want to be in this group show that we're doing? Maybe you start to approach galleries a little bit. Then you're going to be doing group shows. That's kind of your first step into formally presenting your work in a gallery setting. Now you're going to do group shows for a while. If your work's really solid, someone might go, well, you have a ton of work here. I've taken a look at your website. You've just got, you've got so many bodies of work. We might offer you a solo show. That's the next step from group shows is solo shows. All right. Solo shows you can do for a very long time. But the overall goal is kind of where most artists want to get, is kind of just get acknowledged by the museum community. That's where a lot of them want to. And I'm speaking strictly business too. You know, this is very much like the overall fine art world, classical way, the trajectory most artists have gone on. So once you've done a lot of solo shows, if you've done them and they're culturally interesting and so forth, you'll then start to get maybe some museum interest. And especially when you're younger, this is a big giant hint note, is even if you're a painter or you know, any type of artist, sculptor, or whatever, after a while of doing all this stuff and doing solo shows, what I've been telling Brett a lot lately is you really need to start thinking about doing installations, because the way to get yourself in with the museum community is they're really looking for people who are doing installations, because they have a room they need to fill generally, and they need an artist to come in, and generally artists tend to be younger when they're starting out, so they're always it's how young artists first get into the museum community. So if you're a painter like Brett is, Brett started to now do this thing where he's recording locations over 24 hours and then grabbing pieces of debris and objects he finds around the locations and kind of going into depth and detail about these pieces and why they're important. You see, Brett's basically taking his world of his urban abstract paintings and expanding upon that into a overall installation type setting. That's the type of stuff museums are looking for. They're also looking for stuff that's kind of culturally relevant as well, stuff that's plays a role in the larger culture of our communities. So when you've done solo shows for a while, you can then start thinking in that way, thinking about doing stuff like that. And you know, if you're doing solo shows, start incorporating some of that into your solo shows, and you'll eventually start generating some museum interest if it's really, honestly, interesting stuff you're doing. And then if you've done museum interest, if they're interested, they'll hire you to do an installation, and then you'll do those for a while. Then once you kind of get on the installation game, and if you're doing stuff that's relevant, you'll start to attract blue chip collectors because now you're doing stuff with museums. And in the fine art world, when you start to work with a museum, your work itself just starts to go up in money like crazy, because now museums are recognizing you. And museums themselves, I personally view, I know a ton of people in the museum industry now, so I view them completely differently as I used to view them. Museums used to have to, they now sell tickets, and they have to get people through the doors, and they're looking to fill space. So it takes a long time for them to just bring on artists. It takes them sometimes 20 years. So the fastest way to get there is basically through doing installations and starting to think that way. You attract the blue chip collectors, and then eventually you get to where you're kind of, museums buy, your work. That's kind of like, in general, what a lot of artists, aspire to, right? Okay. The 50% cut and why it exists. So when you go out there, galleries take 50%. The reason they take 50% is because they have a brick and mortar building. It takes a lot to operate. At first I thought it was really steep when I first started getting into the gallery community and stuff, but now that I've been around a lot of galleries, they definitely need the 50% just to keep the doors open and the lights on and stuff like that. When you do go up for galleries, this is another big note. just because, like I said, the thing I said before where a gallery is just a building, a gallery is just a space, always keep that in mind because everybody's opening up a gallery every day here in the city. And a lot of people's early, their early conflicts come from, joining up and doing shows with a gallery where there basically was some discordance. Basically, you're working with people who don't know what they're doing. A gallery is a business at the end of the day, and not all business owners are created equal. So always do your research on galleries. Maybe friends you've gone through there. Oh yeah, Joe, the gallery owner there. Yeah, he pays us when our checks come on time. He's very solid about presenting our work. He actually even does some marketing, And so always do your research a little bit on galleries.
Could you talk just real briefly on how to approach a gallery?
Yes, we'll get into that right now. Galleries, what galleries are looking for? Galleries are looking for, basically at the end of the day, something they can sell. They're looking for art that's solid and good, and you need to be in charge of your own marketing, which is why I talk so much about the social media. And you really need to kind of create your own collector's base. Don't rely on gallery owners to do that for you. In general, they're really bad at it. There's not one in the city that I know is like super awesome. Actually, there's a couple. Modern Eden Gallery, who I just did a show with, and the reason I curated a show with them is because they do their social media so awesomely. And hence, they sell about 50% of their work online as well. Now, we're gonna skip there. When you go into how to approach a gallery, you basically want to approach a gallery in the way of, you have to understand galleries get hit up all the time, by artists all the time. And so you want to present yourself in a way that kind of represents you in the best possible way. You want to have a nice body of work. A body of work should always consist of about 12 pieces, and you want to try to have multiple bodies of work by the time you start approaching a gallery. That's really what they're looking for. They're looking for people who have some work under them and who have, you have a website. If you have a website that looks like this with all your stuff and your social media and the press you've gotten and, every website that's ever written you up, and you look like you're professional. They're going to Google you. The first thing they ever do is they're going to Google you. Now, another thing you can do is you can create packets. If you want to go the old school way, you basically, with all galleries you approach, you want to know the galleries and kind of do your reconnaissance a little bit. The biggest mistake I see a lot of artists do is they start approaching like, I want to get into like White Walls. White Walls does mostly like street art, but I'm doing like, abstract expressionists. Well, Justin doesn't sell that type of work. He just simply is not interested whatsoever. Find the type of galleries that sell the type of work you produce. Biggest note ever. That's why a lot of people get a ton of rejection letters, is because they're simply not approaching people that fit their categories. Now with that, you also want to go out there and do your homework. Go to art fairs, go to Art Basel. If you guys can go to Art Basel, that should be like the master's class at the Academy of Art. You should have to go to Miami, go party a little bit, and go to Art Basel, and go to all the various fairs around there, because you kind of see where you fall in the art world. It's incredibly important to kind of know where you stand. A lot of students that get out of here, I see them in shows and they overprice their work tremendously. They don't have a collector's base. And you really just kind of want to know, the reason they do this too is because a lot of times they're just not getting out there enough. They're not seeing what else is out there. The more you get out there into the community, the more shows you see, the better idea you're going to have of where you kind of stand in the galleries to approach, and how to approach them, in fact. Because all gallery owners are different people too. So maybe if it's like Justin, you walk in on a day and he's around and you go, hey, I'm so-and-so, this is the type of work I do, and you maybe just hand him your card, and you always just want to kind of vibe the gallery you're approaching a little bit. And with emails generally kind of get overlooked. If I was personally trying to get into a gallery and I thought I was a perfect fit for them, I'd actually do up a real nice packet. I'd present it really hardcore, and I'd maybe FedEx it to them even. You always are presenting yourself. You're always presenting yourself in a way that, in whatever way you want to. But you have to go, if I'm the gallery owner and I'm receiving something from an artist, if they did all this work, it's impressive that they went through all of this. They're at least going to take note of you. You're not just an email. Does that make sense? It sounds like super basic knowledge, but people get their feelings hurt in this art community, but there's no need for it. You just have to, always present yourself well and to the highest ability. I'm kind of gonna, I know we're running out of time here quick, and I have a bunch of stuff that I could get through, but I kind of got through a lot of it. Are there any questions?
You say the same applies when you're presenting your work to creative directors?
Yes, absolutely, 110%. You always, just think about, people like nice, so art in general is a luxury item. It's a total luxury item. It's not even a Gucci purse. A Gucci purse has you can carry stuff in it, and a Gucci purse costs the same amount as one of your paintings you're going to sell. So it's a complete luxury item. And the thing that you learn when you go to places like Art Basel, and when you go to a lot of these art fairs, is you start to see how top artists present their work. As an artist goes through their career, through all these different avenues, they start to present their work in a just cleaner way. There's a lot of when I go to a lot of group shows here in the city, things are real rough with a lot of artists, and I'm talking with framing and stuff like that. You have to think, people are spending, $5,000 on a painting. They buy nice stuff. They like nice things. Your painting is a nice thing. They want it to be presented well. So that goes with your whole brand identity. That goes with your whole identity. So whenever you're trying to approach a gallery, if they get something that just looks nice, that looks like, wow, this is classy, this guy did his work, it just looks professional, they're going to take note of you. That goes with a design agency, that goes with any type of business whatsoever. So, yeah.
How do you keep Facebook just art? Because I have this huge fear of Facebook. I've never had one. I don't have any interest, but I know that it would help me do what I do, but I don't know how to keep it. How do I just keep it art and no personal,
Well, you can always, it's nearly impossible. You know why? Because you are your art. It's even if you're putting your art up there, how personal is art to all of us? Your own art. It's like the most personal thing in the world. So even if you're just saying I'm putting up my paintings, it's still really personal. The more you get comfortable putting yourself out there, the more success you'll have overall. I know that without a doubt. That a lot of artists, you really just have to get over that kind of fear of putting yourself out there, of taking that. If it feels uncertain to you, then just step forward and see how it feels then. If you don't like the thing of putting too much of your personal life on there, then put a picture, like I said, of the book you're reading recently and see how that feels. If it's unsettling to you, then back away. But generally, the more you push yourself, the more comfortable you'll get, and then you'll just reach a point where it's like, it doesn't really matter. Because these days, you can just put so much content out there. So how much content can I put on Facebook a day? Honestly, you can put as much as you want. The feeds are moving so fast. I generally tell people 3 to 5 decent posts throughout the day. So I'm running a big media site and stuff like that, but if you're really trying to grow Facebook fans, if you're really trying to get a following, try to do 3 to 5 posts a day. That's kind of the magic number. Any other questions?
You mentioned Charmaine Olivia's making enough money just with her social media stuff.
So we're doing,
and her print. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So where's all the money coming from? She's got her print revenue. Where's the rest of it coming from? Because I know I have some presence online. She has a lot of buyers. You know what I mean?
Charmaine her buyers are from so here's the thing too. Your buyers are international now. It's no longer, I'm trying to sell to people in the city. We sell generally, and this goes with even Modern Eden. I know their statistics kind of where they sell the most work and online and so on and so forth. There's a ton of collectors in Australia. Australians buy a lot of art. They really do. There's just we know because we pay a ton to ship stuff over there. So Australians really buy a lot of work. So do a lot of Europeans, Denmark, Sweden, people that are really into design and art. I generally find, really buy a lot of stuff. Now we ship stuff all over the world as well. So she's just making money through prints, right? But she's also making money through, she's created kind of this brand for herself. And so she's now getting hired on photo shoots. I really believe Charmaine's going to be one of the first kind of artists who is more than just her art. She's more a brand identity. Just the way she's being approached by clothing companies and so on and so forth, it's kind of headed that way, where she is an artist, but she's also going to be recognized as kind of this personality. She has, because at the end of the day, brands, let's say a clothing brand, she has a huge following of 17 to 25-year-olds who shop at Anthropologie. Well, who would be interested in, people who sell Anthropologie type clothes, type stuff like that. So she's already started to earn a lot of revenue off these side income things and side opportunities like that. That's also come from exposing herself a bit more too.
Almost like a pop star?
Yeah. Well, fame is like, here's the thing about fame. I come from this Hollywood training, but fame, here's something, because a lot of artists are like, well, I don't want that fame thing. I don't want to be like, but here's the deal. Fame is just exposure. I look at life as kind of like high school. Remember in high school, like the jocks and the cheerleaders were like those were like the coolest people that everybody knew, right? Everybody knew who the football players were and stuff like that. Well, life's kind of like that too, where the people we know the most about are people who are just exposed. So our celebrities are people who are in movies or on People magazine, they just are exposed. You see pictures of them, the more you see on that person, the more exposed they are. Now with that, you have a lot of control about your initial output, how you're initially received when you're starting your career. How do I want to be perceived by people? Charmaine, she takes all these beautiful photos of herself and has photographers take them, but she just will not do nudity and stuff like that. She's very adamant about that. That takes her to a class level that she doesn't want to go. You're always building your kind of brand. You're always in control of that. Does that make sense? Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
That's the thing, is this is a whole new paradigm. This is not necessarily just about your art anymore. The more you feel comfortable about being yourself and putting yourself out there, the more success you'll have, the more money you'll make.
Sort of following that, let's say someone like Brett Armory, who doesn't look like her, because the sort of perfect storm that's happening for her is that she's got this.
She's a cute girl, young,
beautiful,
right?
She's young, she's all those things.
So what about Brett? Right?
Who don't look like that? How could they look?
Yeah. So.
How do
I'll be sure to relay this all to Brett. I'm sure he'll know.
No, you know what I mean? Like, he's like a cool-looking guy, but he's not going to be selling his look as a brand to people, right?
Well, here's the thing. Brett already puts himself out there in other ways, in all these different avenues of himself. He actually is, Brett's one of the best people I know at really approaching press. That's something I did not touch on. I had a lot of notes here, but Brett's success has come a lot from really being good about approaching people in the press world and creating relationships with them. That's how he and I first got to meet one another. He approached me, and his work was solid. Here's a big note. If people aren't touching base with you, if your work's really solid, you have all these things, and people aren't talking to you or communicating with you or wanting to work with you, your work just may not be there yet. I'm just telling it straight to you because that's the truth. I know a lot of artists out there who are doing work that they think they're doing the most amazing, genius thing that's ever been done, and they're like, Mike, I don't understand why I'm not getting any, responses from people. And it's like, from an outsider's perspective, I'm thinking, well, it's because it's just not there yet. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just your thing has not established itself yet. It's part of the creative process. So Brett, though, has established himself as kind of this urban abstract painter. And he's gotten himself exposed quite a bit through all the different press avenues, and he's created relationships with everybody. We all kind of know one another, from Juxtaposed to High Fructose to Art Forum, all those guys. He's established relationships, establishes it with photographers. So he's put himself out there in every way he possibly can, right? With that, he's also worked with brands like Absolute. He did the Kentucky Derby label. You know, these are things that are not necessarily paintings and galleries. These are side opportunities that have come into Brett that, you know, help you know, him to make money on other avenues. Brett makes you know, a fair deal of money through these various other opportunities that even 10, 15, 20 years ago, he wouldn't have necessarily had the opportunity. You see brands like, once again, corporate brands, they're always looking to, art's hot right now. Art is hot and it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. You guys are right at the point right now where you start putting yourselves out there, you start utilizing social media for yourselves. You really, you can hop on the wave right now. It's happening right now.
She has one brand, and I've heard this from several different people. Like, I wouldn't know what to put on a website right now because I'm doing all academic stuff. I'm doing still lifes, figures.
Put it all on.
It's
It's all perfect.
It doesn't have to be one cohesive brand or my voice that is recognizable to
No, you always just want to put
whatever I'm doing.
right. I'll touch lightly on something that's important here because I didn't get to really flesh it out fully, but we're talking kind of about a lot of students come out of the Academy of Art, you're doing all sorts of subject matters all over the place. You're painting, you know, it's very uncohesive. As you kind of get some life experience, things will start to become more cohesive. And when those things become cohesive, just do 10 to 12 of them. And then you have a body of work. And then let's say you do a picture of, you know, you see these lips on Tumblr and you want to do lips and you do one painting of lips and they're just beautiful and you go, well, I want to do another, and then you do 10 to 12 lips. That's a whole lip series. You see, that's how you don't have to worry so much about how am I going to create my brand as how do I take my creativity, how do I take my inspiration and the stuff I produce and make it, basically categorize it and you know, share it with the world out there and let my brand kind of establish itself. Charmaine liked to paint pretty girls, has since she's a little girl, and she's still doing it to this day. She is honestly like pure from, I know her very well, very, very, very well, and we're like relatives at this point, but it's like, but she's honestly always, since she was a little kid, she's always just really enjoyed painting pretty girls. And so it's very pure, very true. And she didn't go out there going like, well, how am I going to use social media to like, you know, trick people into like, you know, well, they like girls. Nudity always sells. Women always sell in paintings, which that's true. But, you know, she didn't think that way. It kind of established itself. So just be easy with it and kind of let that stuff kind of come to you over time. It's something, with a lot of artists, especially if you're in your 20s to early 30s, that's just a lot of like living lifetime. It's a lot of just like playing around with things and letting things kind of fall into place and seeing what comes out of that, because it changes and it evolves and it's always a different thing. Does that answer your question at all? Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
You mentioned that when you go into a gallery, the first thing that they're going to do is look you up and look up your past exhibitions and your resume.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just starting out and you don't have a strong resume or anything built up yet, how are you going to gain attention any other way than just your art?
If your art's good, they'll want you. It's basically like this. First step, they come to your website. It's a solid website. You have all your social media. If you even have followers, you could have 10,000 followers, no problem, and not have ever shown in a gallery. I see people do it all the time on DeviantArt, all the time. You know, and galleries, when they see stuff like that, they're like, wow, she's got 10,000 Facebook followers. They start thinking about giving you a show. They're really, as long as you're presented well, as long as you present yourself well online and your art is solid, because I do want to add that, your art is solid. If people aren't contacting you, a lot of times it's just because your art's just not there. You know, if your art fits in and always just keep trying. If a gallery, if you don't get any response from them, let's say you put together, let's say you do everything I say, you have a beautiful website, you have all your social media stuff going, linked and everything. You even spent a ton of money and FedExed them a really nice portfolio thing with pictures and so on and so forth, and you get no response. Hit them up 4 months later. Keep hitting them up. Eventually, they're going to see you're hungry. And if you're producing work and it's solid work, or they at least see you're advancing from every time you hit them up, they'll give you an opportunity at some point. That's just the way it works, you know. So that's what I have to say about that. Does that make sense? It's kind of like, I mean, that's kind of like it's hard for me to tell that to a lot of artists because artists are really sensitive. Well, what do you mean my work, I should be able to produce whatever work I want. Sometimes it's just not there yet. Sometimes what you're aiming to do with your art, what you're going to be known for, has just not settled. It's just a universal thing. You have to be easy with it because when it clicks into place, it clicks into place. I watched Brett with his career and I've watched it click into place. I've even watched Charmaine with everything click into place with her, and it just happens. It just happens at the right time. And if you're just doing all the things, producing these nice clean bodies of work and all that other stuff, and presenting yourself well, eventually it's going to happen for yourself. You have to be hungry. You have to keep producing work. It's all about production. Yeah.
You said to perhaps FedEx or something to a gallery. What would you put in there?
Okay, so let's say, okay, Mike, you tell us to do this. What are you going to do? So if I were going to approach a gallery tomorrow, I would probably put together a very nice portfolio of my work, just printouts of my paintings, my name, kind of what I am, what my background. Explain your work. That's a big thing I actually didn't get to touch on at all. Explaining your work is like a major thing. Don't assume that that people are going to know your whole background or what you're trying to go on, or what your whole the whole background of your art is. You got to explain it to people a little bit. Give them kind of they have the picture, tell them a little bit of the story behind it, because that's selling it. That's kind of like explaining to them, what you do, what this whole body of work is about. I mean, if you look at Brett's work, it's just a bunch of people standing around, right? It's just a bunch of people standing around, one person standing on a corner. But Brett's whole thing is, it's about people waiting. When he would be standing at the BART platforms early in the morning on his way to work at Kinko's back in the day, he would see people just drowsy, just kind of like faded off, staring into nothingness. And he saw that as just an interesting, like, it's this thing that he saw all the time, and it was like almost a meditative space. But he took that and he made it this whole kind of part of his body of work, his brand. That's Brett's thing, is waiting. Now when people go in the city and they see one person standing in the corner, the first person we think of is Brett. He's really established that for himself. So I would really, who I am, what type of work I do, what type of, explaining kind of the background of what I'm aiming for with my art. Don't get so crazy and becoming really artistic and explaining like, well, I think this is an interpersonal journey with, Starbucks and culture and how, it's just like, gallery owners at the end of the day, they've heard all that shit. It's like they just want they want your idea to be kind of clever and explained in just kind of a nutshell. If you can explain your work in 2 to 3 sentences, that's perfect. If I had it, then I'd have 2 to 3 sentences up there explaining my work, and then it would just be pictures of my work. And that's it. Because either my work flies or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, I got to paint more. And then I produce and I do it all over again. And if it doesn't hit there, maybe I'm trying another place. And you just go on and on and on and on and on and on. And it will hit eventually. You just have to keep trying. Artists in general, they just get frustrated. They get frustrated, they get their feelings hurt. Don't get your feelings hurt when you get out there, when you graduate. There's no need for it. It's like you're going to get turned down. Not all gallery people are they're getting hit up all the time. It's most intentions of people are pure. It's just something where you just have to keep telling people what you're doing, keep informing them what you're doing, showing them what you're doing, and eventually it'll work out for you. It just will.
The most successful artist I know has a book of rejection letters this thick. and she carries it around with a badge of honor because this is how hard she works. She says it's just a numbers game.
It is just a numbers game. It's just a numbers game. Are there any more questions? Did I bore you guys to death? Did you get some information out of this? Basically, at the end of the day, utilize social media, utilize Facebook. Don't feel so stressed out about it, and be easy with it. Be really easy with it. This is not. Don't think you're so important either, because this is what I've learned about social media. You can put yourself out there and all this other stuff. You can second guess yourself, like, is this important? Should I even be putting this up? Is this too personal? At the end of the day, people don't really care that much. Like, it's on their feed, and if they even make a judgment, it's gone tomorrow. You know, I mean, it's like, that's how fast our brains are working today. So just use the social media to your example. And I'm going to give you guys, this is my last big hint too. This is my last big tip. So as I said, pictures are the number one thing that work. When you post anything to Facebook or Twitter or anything that you can, always try to make it one picture and do a description of what it is, and that's it. And the more you do of that, 3 to 5 times a day, you'll start to build a following. That's how it works. It's just the algorithm. So that's my hint, my tip. Go for it. Go make something of yourselves now.
Give Mike a hand.